9. Target store attack. All hell broke loose at a Target store in downtown Los Angeles one evening in 2022 when a homeless man entered the store, grabbed a butcher knife with a 9-inch blade off a shelf, and threatened to stab and kill a 9-year-old boy. The child attempted to get away but was unable to escape before the attacker stabbed him twice in the back, causing him to fall to the floor with a deep wound to his shoulder blade. A 25-year-old woman tried to shield the boy and was stabbed in the chest. Bystanders pulled her into the store's pharmacy area and tended to her wounds. An armed security guard confronted the homeless man and initially tried to de-escalate the situation, but the suspect continued to come at him with a knife and the guard fatally shot him in self-defense. Upon hearing the gunfire, panicked customers fled toward the store's exit. A woman was left with facial injuries after being trampled by the stampede. In an update to the victim's condition, a police official revealed that the little boy underwent surgery and was stable, but could end up suffering neurological damage due to the nature of his injuries. His family credited the woman who stepped in to protect him with saving his life. She also underwent surgery and was expected to survive. Nobody knows what was going on inside the suspect's head in the minutes leading up to the attack. Authorities are continuing to investigate in hopes of uncovering some answers. 8. Hayley Winkle. Officer Ben Riley was taking a report about a stolen car at a Hertz rental center in Hot Springs, Arkansas one morning in 2020 when the missing vehicle drove right by. He pulled the car over and arrested 21-year-old Hayley Winkle. She told the officer that she was homeless. During the questioning, Winkle confessed to stealing the car. She said she saw it running, and in her own words, "I wanted it, so I took it." The young woman was charged with theft of property involving a vehicle, which could have landed her in prison for up to 10 years. Records showed that she served 30 days in jail later that year. Hayley died under suspicious circumstances in early 2022. At the young age of 23, she left behind 2 young children. According to her family, authorities did not investigate her death as suspicious, and they don't understand why, because they believe there's plenty of evidence to indicate that the young woman's death did not result from natural causes or an accident. She was last seen alive when a man named Ryan Puckett picked her up with plans to spend the night together at an Airbnb. Something went terribly wrong, but the circumstances remain shrouded in mystery. Hayley's phone was never recovered, and advocates for her case claimed that she was dead for hours before the man she was with finally called 911. They suspect foul play and are fighting relentlessly in an effort to convince law enforcement to take a deeper look at the case. 7. Ray Comer. Police in Daytona, Florida dealt with a particularly heartbreaking and disturbing crime in 2015 when they received calls about a man beating, shaking, and strangling a small dog. Officers arrived to find the young Dasher named Baby Susie motionless in the street. The suspect, a 56-year-old transient named Ray Comer, was nowhere in sight. But he left his ID at the scene and was quickly tracked down in a nearby parking lot. They charged Comer with felony animal cruelty and took him to the Volusia County Jail, where he was held on $2,000 bail. Records showed that police had cited Comer earlier that day for an animal ordinance violation for using an improper leash and collar. Several witnesses were extremely emotional after seeing the brutal, unprovoked attack against the small, defenseless pet. Comer's reasons for flying into a rage are unclear, but when police found him, he said that he wanted to be arrested, and he went into custody willingly. 6. David DePape. In the early morning hours of October 28, 2022, an intruder broke into the California home of U.S. House of Representatives Speaker Nancy Pelosi and her husband, 82-year-old Paul Pelosi. Paul woke up to the trespasser standing over him and demanding to know where Nancy was. He said that she wasn't home and convinced the intruder to let him use the bathroom, which gave him a chance to dial 911. Police arrived to find Pelosi struggling to fight a hammer out of his attacker's hands. The suspect ignored an officer's command to drop the hammer and instead yanked it out of Pelosi's hands and struck the octogenarian in the head. Pelosi was knocked unconscious, but woke up several minutes later in a pool of his own blood and ultimately survived the attack. Authorities identified the suspect as 42-year-old David DePape, who lived in a school bus parked outside his ex-girlfriend Gypsy Taub's home. She told the New York Times that he became disillusioned after their relationship ended and began telling people he was Jesus while living in a park. Taub said that DePape wasn't into politics when they first met. But that changed over the years as he increasingly latched onto conspiracy theories and developed a deep mistrust of the US government. In a Facebook post, Taub's daughter, Inti Gonzalez, described how DePape's interest in conspiracy theories developed into a full-blown obsession in recent years. He also began expressing racist and anti-Semitic views online. DePape became increasingly isolated and began spending almost all his free time on the internet, descending deeper into the throes of QAnon, Pizzagate, Gamergate, and other right-wing conspiracy theories. His former boss, Frank Ciccarelli, told The Times that David used to say that he believed he was living in a computer simulation and that at some point he lost his ability to discuss politics rationally. He's being held in custody on numerous charges, including attempted kidnapping, attempted murder, and assault. The attempted kidnapping charge alone could carry a 20-year prison sentence if he's convicted. Genius Draper. 62-year-old Jerome Smith was walking down the street in Midtown Manhattan one day in October 2022 when he was fatally crushed by a construction vehicle. Before police arrived at the scene, a homeless man dug through the dead man's pockets and stole his wallet. Horrified onlookers recorded the crime of opportunity with their cell phones, but nobody stepped in and tried to stop the woman from running off with his belongings. Some witnesses cheered on, while others were disgusted by her behavior. Without Smith's ID, authorities had to identify him through dental records. NYPD officers recognized the suspect inside a subway station several days later and took her into custody. 40-year-old Janice Draper was charged with petty and grand larceny and released with instructions to come to court at a later date. She had a crack pipe on her when she was apprehended and has a lengthy criminal record consisting of at least 50 prior arrests. But authorities had no choice but to release her due to New York State's controversial bail reform laws, which essentially ban judges from imposing bail, except in cases involving serious violence. Shortly after her arrest, Draper claimed that Smith, who was also homeless, had robbed her that day before he was hit by the truck. She said that she was just getting back the money he took from her. Whether or not her story will hold up in court remains to be seen. 4. Ocean Beach beating. In a shocking act of violence that was captured on surveillance video, a man was brutally attacked by a group of homeless people in Ocean Beach, California, after leaving a restaurant one evening in 2022. Woody Bothell was with his dog on a sidewalk when the suspects approached and asked for money. When he said no, 6 young men surrounded him and began to harass him. Bothell told them he just wanted to go home and asked them to stop, but that was just the beginning of the horror he was about to experience. He was thrown to the ground and kicked in the face, head and body repeatedly, leaving him with lasting injuries and psychological scars. Speaking to ABC 10 News several days after the assault, Bothell said that his whole body was a mess and that he had just undergone some hand surgery to fix some of the damage. Like many other years-long residents of Ocean Beach, he described the city's current homelessness problem as the worst he's ever seen it. He's among a growing number of locals who are becoming fed up with the increased violence in the area, which has left residents feeling helpless and unsafe. Chris Saltzman, who manages the restaurant that captured the beating on camera, told ABC that he's grown accustomed to seeing fights break out near his workplace at least once every week or two. He said that the growing problems are taking a toll on local business owners, and he hopes something can be done to help the area's homeless people with their various needs. 3. Terry Lynn Zinser. Kelsey Smith was on the patio of her Portland, Oregon home one day in 2022 when her dogs began barking from inside. She went in and initially found no signs of anything being amiss, but the dogs remained frantic. Smith followed them into her son's room, where one of the dogs jumped up onto the bed and stood on a pile of clean laundry, leading her to think he'd cornered a mouse. But she realized moments later that there was a person in the bed. All of a sudden, a woman emerged from beneath the laundry. She picked up an ottoman and charged at Smith with it, then left the home. The alarmed homeowner's 24-year-old son overheard the chaos and rushed into the room to see what was going on. he followed the suspect outside and dialed 911. Smith told local station KPTV the police officers caught the woman trying to enter another home down the street. While she understands that the suspect most likely needs mental help, she opted to press charges because she believes that not enough is being done about the overwhelming homelessness problem in the Portland area. Authorities charged 54-year-old Terry Lindsay with burglary and harassment. She was released from custody the next day. Smith learned that the charges were dropped despite Zinz's extensive history of burglary, trespassing, harassment, and assault. She called the district attorney and left a voicemail in hopes of receiving an explanation for why the case was dismissed, but had yet to receive a call back 2 days later when she spoke with the local news. 2. Lindsay Miles. In November 2020, police in Cambridge, Ohio responded to a call about a person sitting in an idling vehicle for several hours. After noticing the white SUV outside his apartment building for an unusual amount of time, the caller became concerned for the driver's safety and requested a welfare check. When officers arrived, a woman exited the vehicle to speak with them. She said she was homeless and relaxing, essentially with nowhere to go. It sounded innocent enough, but she didn't have her ID with her, and then gave the cops a false name and social security number. The woman eventually began cooperating. When the police identified her as 35-year-old Lindsay Miles, they realized why she was so nervous to tell them who she really was. She was wanted on 7 warrants. 4 of them were for theft, 1 was for failing to appear in court, and 2 were felony warrants that were issued in connection with child support cases. Miles refused to let the police search the vehicle, but they established probable cause to search without her consent after a canine alerted them to contraband from outside the SUV. Officers found hypodermic needles and plastic bags containing white residue. The suspect admitted to using fentanyl right before the cops arrived and was taken to jail after undergoing a medical evaluation. 1. San Francisco's poop problem. In 2021, a news article claimed that a homeless man infected thousands of people with COVID-19 after he used a public water fountain as a bidet. According to the story, the drifter had just finished doing his business in the street and was rinsing himself off when he contaminated the city's water supply. A health department spokesperson had supposedly cautioned civilians against using San Francisco's water fountains to avoid getting sick. But the article wasn't a real news report. It was published by the World News Daily Report, which is famous for its satirical articles that rarely have much truth behind them. Even the names of the health department spokesperson and the police chief that are mentioned in the piece appear to be fictitious. San Francisco does have a serious problem with public defecation, however, and it has led to health and safety concerns. It began in 2012 and worsened over the years as the city remained hard hit by the opioid epidemic and its homeless population swelled. In the meantime, leaders tolerated the growing number of encampments despite widespread demands for them to take action. The poop problem peaked in 2019 when the city received over 30,000 complaints about suspected human feces in public. To combat the issue, a portable toilet program was implemented a few years earlier. It wasn't enough to meet the demand for more available bathrooms, but it seemed to help alleviate the problem. In the meantime, San Francisco's Public Works Department stepped up its efforts to keep the streets clean. The annual number of poop complaints showed a promising drop in 2021, which saw the lowest amount of complaints in 3 years. To truly solve the issue, more needs to be done to manage the homeless population and provide meaningful long-term help and resources to those who need it. But for now, it seems like even small improvements are worth celebrating. Thanks for watching. Would you rather return from vacation to find a tiny but unwelcome intruder staying in your home and refusing to leave, or have your kitchen trashed by a hungry bear? Let us know in the comments below and don't forget to subscribe. See you next time. Bye.